I never thought a pair of cufflinks would undo 12 years of marriage. They weren't mine. That's the strangest part. I've never worn cufflinks in my life. Not once. I'm more of a roll your sleeves up and fix the garbage disposal type of guy. Nothing flashy. But that night, at the Moon Ridge Hotel ballroom, I stared at them, gleaming on another man's wrists while he danced with my wife like they'd been rehearsing it for weeks. I should probably introduce myself. My name is Mariel. Yeah, I know. Weird name. Blame my grandmother. I'm 41, from Nebraska originally, but I've lived in Dalton Springs, Arizona, since I married a girl named Karen Blake, or just Corey, like she insists on being called now. She's got this laugh that turns heads in a room. Sharp, effortless, like wind chimes in a storm. I used to be the one who made her laugh like that. But somewhere between raising a daughter, replacing the roof twice, and losing my job during the restructuring last year, I guess I faded into the background. Last Friday, Corey asked me to come to a benefit gala her office was co-hosting. I was surprised she even mentioned it. She normally doesn't want me anywhere near her work events. She said it might be good for both of us to go. Her voice was chipper, forced. I mistook that for hope. I wish I hadn't. I borrowed a blazer from my neighbor. Mine didn't fit anymore. I tried to trim the wild hair on the back of my neck in the mirror and even practiced smiling because I wanted to seem like I still belonged at her side. The venue was all marble floors and champagne flutes. People in suits that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. I felt like I'd walked into a movie I wasn't cast in. Corey looked stunning, like television stunning. A black, backless dress, hair tied up in some intricate knot, her perfume hitting me like a memory overload. She barely acknowledged me as we walked in. I knew something was wrong when she spotted him. Tall, dark suit, polished shoes, and those damn cufflinks. Silver with some kind of crest or emblem I didn't recognize. He was standing by the bar, leaning casually, a glass of something amber in his hand. Corey's posture shifted the moment she saw him. Straighter, more alert, as if gravity changed around him. I asked who he was. She mumbled, "Just a colleague." "Relax, Mariel," she said, and relax. Minutes later, they were dancing. Not a polite two-step, not a group number, but slow, intentional, close. His hand settled on the small of her back like it belonged there. She was smiling, that smile, the one I hadn't seen directed at me in over a year. I stood there like an idiot, clutching a half-warm drink, pretending to read a silent auction list pinned to the wall. My ears burned. My hands didn't know what to do. People walked by, some glancing at me like they knew, like they were in on the joke. I wanted to disappear. When the song ended, I caught her arm gently as she passed by on her way back to the dance floor. "Can we talk for a second?" I whispered. Corey looked at me like I was asking to borrow her car keys. I said quietly but firmly, "If you go back out there and dance with him again, then we're going to have a serious..." She rolled her eyes. "A serious what, Mariel?" I froze because I didn't even know how to finish that sentence. Conversation, breakdown, ending, but she didn't wait. She turned, she walked, she danced, and I just stood there watching, knowing in my gut that something had shifted forever. That was the moment I realized she didn't care if I was watching. Maybe she wanted me to, but what came after? I wasn't ready for her. I didn't wait for her to finish the second dance. I walked out, not dramatically, not in a storm of footsteps, but like a man who's just realized he forgot his place in the story, like the extra on a set who just figured out the camera was never pointing at him. I found the side exit and stepped into the night air, where the dull roar of the event faded behind a wall of thick hedges and soft jazz leaking through the glass. I stood in the parking lot, pretending to look at my phone, even though I wasn't checking anything. I just needed to look like I belonged somewhere. Truth was, I didn't want anyone to see my face. My own skin felt foreign. 10 minutes passed. 15. I almost left. Got in the car, key halfway in the ignition. But some misplaced sense of decency told me I should wait. She was still my wife. We had driven there together. I wasn't going to walk away that easily. Not yet. The passenger door opened suddenly. She slid in, clutching her phone, eyes blazing like I was the one who'd embarrassed her. You just left, she snapped. At my event. Seriously. I didn't answer at first. I looked at her. Not in anger, not in panic, just confusion. Corey, what are you doing with that guy? She scoffed. You mean Owen? He's a director. He's important, Mariel. We were making connections. Is that what they're calling it now? I said, instantly regretting the tone. Her glare shifted into something colder. Don't do that. I watched you, I said. I watched you dance with him like he was the only one in the room. You didn't even look at me. Not once. Her silence said more than any apology would have. You didn't want me there, I continued. You invited me to play husband on a leash so the office didn't talk. But you didn't want me. Not really. She looked out the window. This isn't the place to talk about this. So when is Corey? Because if I hadn't said anything, you would have kept dancing, kept smiling. Maybe even followed him upstairs if no one stopped you. That got her attention. Her eyes snapped to mine, defensive and sharp. How dare you accuse me of? Because I'm not blind, I snapped. You treat me like a houseplant, something in the background. I sit in silence while you sparkle for strangers and come home smelling like a perfume I never bought you. That silenced her, but only for a moment. Then why are you still here, Mariel? She whispered, almost like a dare. Why do you keep pretending we're something we're not? And there it was. Not a confession, not an apology, but something worse. An admission that this wasn't just a moment of weakness. This was the new normal. And she had already adjusted. I wanted to yell. I wanted to cry. I wanted to demand she explain how we went from honeymoon road trips in the Rockies to sitting in the parking lot like two strangers in formal wear, pretending we still had something to lose. But I didn't. Instead, I started the car. We rode home in silence. She didn't say a word. Not when we pulled into the driveway. Not when we got inside. Not even when I went upstairs alone. That night, I lay in bed with my eyes open until 3 a.m. And something shifted in me. Not just sadness, not rage either. Something deeper. Something that told me I needed to know the truth. And that meant finding out what she was hiding behind that man, that dance, and that lie she called our marriage. What I found next would make me question everything. I didn't go to sleep that night. Not really. I stayed in the guest room, or as we used to call it, the junk room, back before things went quiet between us. I sat on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, the tie still around my neck like a noose I forgot to take off. I stared at the floor, at the wall, at nothing, just running the same loop in my head. That dance, that smirk, that damn pair of cufflinks. By 4 a.m., I finally gave up pretending. I stood, walked into the hallway, and looked at our bedroom door. It was closed. No sounds, no movement, just a thin wooden barrier between a man who was unraveling and a woman who had already left emotionally, if not physically. That's when I saw it. Her phone on the hallway dresser. She always kept it glued to her hand like a second limb. But for once, there it was, unattended, glowing softly under the night light. I wish I could say I hesitated. I didn't. My hands moved faster than my conscience. I picked it up, unlocked it. She hadn't changed the passcode in years, and opened her messages. The first thread that popped up was labeled with one word. Owen. I opened it. I should have stopped. I should have thrown the phone across the room and pretended I hadn't seen anything. But I kept reading because I needed to know whether I was crazy or whether she had made me crazy by gaslighting me into thinking our marriage was fine. The first message was from that night, a few hours before we left for the gala. Owen. You sure bringing him is a good idea? Corey, he's harmless. Besides, it keeps appearances up. Owen. I don't want to hold back tonight. Corey, then don't. He'll get the message eventually. I felt my stomach turn. My hands went cold, but I kept scrolling. More texts, late nights, pictures. Not graphic, nothing that would break YouTube guidelines, but intimate. Him holding her hand across a table. A shot of his watch resting beside her wine glass. One of her in a mirror, her blouse partially unbuttoned. Clearly taken in the office bathroom. Weeks of this, months maybe. She had created an entire second world. One where I didn't exist except as a prop, a cover, a shell. The worst part? I could see it in her words. She wasn't in love with Owen. She wasn't chasing passion or romance. She was chasing freedom, an identity that didn't involve me. She had stepped out of our life and never looked back. At 5:12 a.m., she walked into the hallway. I didn't hear her footsteps. I didn't have time to put the phone down. She saw it in my hand, saw my face, and just froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just looked at her and asked, "How long?" She glanced at the floor like she was doing calculations, like the answer was math and not betrayal. "About 4 months," she whispered. But it wasn't supposed to become a thing. It filled something I didn't know was missing. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because my heart didn't know how else to react. "That's poetic," I said. "You know what I miss, Corey? I miss being missed. I miss being seen. I miss my wife." She stepped forward. "Mariel, I didn't mean." "No," I interrupted. "You meant it. Every word. I just wasn't supposed to find out. I was supposed to stay invisible. But now I'm not." She reached for my hand. I stepped back. That moment, that silence between us felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. And then, as if on cue, her phone buzzed in my palm. Another message from Owen. Owen. So, did he figure it out? Or is he still playing house? She didn't deny it. She didn't snatch the phone away. She didn't cry. She just turned and walked back into the bedroom. And I realized something that scared me more than the messages ever could. She wasn't sorry. Not for the affair, not for the lie, not even for how she made me feel. She was only sorry that I had stopped pretending. I didn't sleep that morning either. The hours after I read those messages, after she saw me holding her phone, were a blur of blank walls and whispered thoughts I couldn't shut off. I sat on the edge of the guest bed again, staring at my suitcase, wondering if I should start packing, wondering what you even take when you're leaving a life behind. What qualifies as yours when the person you loved has already mentally relocated to someone else's arms? Around 7:30 a.m., I heard her moving around the kitchen. She was making breakfast. Breakfast. The woman I just caught exchanging secret, flirtatious texts with a man who called me furniture had the nerve to fry eggs like we were any other married couple on any other sleepy weekend morning. She even turned on the coffee maker, the one I bought her on our 8th anniversary. I heard it sputter to life like it always did, steam hissing like it was angry. 2. I didn't want to go down there, but something in me needed to. Maybe to see if she would lie to my face again. Maybe just to prove to myself that she was real and not some cruel dream. When I walked into the kitchen, she didn't look up. She slid an egg onto a plate and said, "Do you want toast?" I just stared at her. Her hair was messy, still in that knot from the gala. She was wearing an oversized sweatshirt, mine actually, and she had the same face I married, only now it felt like I was looking at a stranger wearing my wife's skin. "You're making toast?" I asked quietly. She nodded like nothing was wrong. "Figured you might be hungry." Hungry. That was the word she chose. Not sorry. Not please talk to me. Not even let's fix this. Just breakfast. "I read everything, Corey. You can't just feed me eggs and make it go away." She finally looked at me, leaning slightly against the counter like this was just another Saturday. "I know," she said. There was no fear in her voice. No apology, no tears, just a kind of resignation. Like she had already rehearsed this moment in her mind and now she was simply living it out. I sat down across from her at the table, my hands resting on the wood I had sanded and stained myself 6 years ago. That table held family dinners, birthday cakes, report cards, and burnt lasagnas. And now it held betrayal thick in the air between us. I said, "You could have told me." She didn't flinch. "You would have left. That was my choice to make." She paused for a second, then said something that genuinely broke me. "I didn't think you'd care this much." That hurt more than the texts, more than the dancing, more than the smile she gave to Owen. "I didn't think you'd care this much." It was the final confirmation that I had become invisible to her long before that ballroom. I had faded into background noise so thoroughly that my heartbreak now seemed like an inconvenience to her. You didn't think I'd care? I said slowly, almost laughing. I've loved you since I was 29, Corey. You think I stuck around after 2 miscarriages, your panic attacks, your career pivots just for convenience? I gave you everything. You think I didn't care? She looked down, tracing a crack in the tile with her bare toe. I didn't mean it like that, but she did. She just didn't expect me to hear it. After a long silence, I said, "So what now?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Do we talk to someone? A therapist? Try whatever people try." I didn't answer. Not right away, because somewhere deep inside, something had shifted again. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just exhausted, worn thin, and tired of being the only one who still believed in something we had clearly both outgrown. "No," I finally said. "We're past therapists." She blinked. "Then what are we?" I looked at her, and for the first time in over a decade, I said something that felt like truth instead of survival. "We're 2 people who used to be in love, and now we're just scared of starting over." Her eyes welled for the first time, but I didn't lean in. I didn't reach across the table. I let the moment hang because I didn't trust her tears anymore. I stood up and went back upstairs. I needed air. I needed space. But most of all, I needed a plan, because love, it turns out, doesn't disappear in one night. It dies slowly, like toast left too long in the heat. The next few days moved slowly. Or maybe I just lived them in slow motion. Corey acted like we were in some kind of limbo, like she could move through the house without consequences, as if the air wasn't thick with tension. She still poured herself morning coffee, still checked her emails on the couch, still changed into her gym leggings and went out for a run like clockwork. Except now, I no longer asked where she was really going. I didn't want to hear another lie delivered with that casual voice she'd mastered so well. I started documenting things. I know how that sounds. Creepy, desperate. But after 12 years of building a life with someone, the idea that you might need evidence to protect yourself from them, that does something strange to your soul. It began with receipts. One morning, she left her gym bag by the door, slightly unzipped. Inside, I found a folded bill from a hotel bar 2 towns over, 2 glasses of Pinot Noir, 1 shrimp cocktail. The date matched the night she told me she was at a women's self-defense class. I took a picture. I didn't confront her. Not yet. That same evening, I searched our joint bank account. I hadn't looked at it in weeks, maybe months. And why would I? She handled the bills, and we always kept things even. At least I thought we did. But there it was. A $273 charge to La Bellina Jewelry. Another to Villa Lucero Day Spa. A third to a boutique florist in Ridgefield that specialized in exotic arrangements. She never wore new jewelry around me. She never brought flowers home. And she sure as hell didn't come back glowing like someone who just had a massage. All those things, they were for him. The man with the cufflinks. The one who danced like I wasn't even there. Every discovery felt like another floor giving out beneath me. But I wasn't falling anymore. I was preparing. For the first time in years, I was looking at my life without filters, without excuses, without that blind loyalty I once wore like a badge of honor. I scheduled an appointment with an attorney 2 towns over. Not someone from Corey's networking bubble. A quiet older guy named Vernon Callahan with wireframe glasses and a blunt way of talking. I brought him a folder with everything. The texts, the receipts, the photos, the bank activity. I expected sympathy, maybe even a little encouragement. But Vernon just looked at me and said, "Do you want revenge or freedom?" That question hit harder than I expected, because somewhere inside, I did want revenge. I wanted her to hurt the way I hurt. To feel the loneliness I'd swallowed every night while she snuck away into someone else's fantasy. But more than that, I wanted clarity, a clean slate, a version of myself that didn't have to tiptoe around her moods or pretend I wasn't bleeding inside. "I want out," I told him. He nodded. "Then we'll make sure she doesn't take the house with her when she leaves." When I walked out of that office, the sun hit differently. Not warmer, not colder, just real, sharp. Like I was finally seeing the world through clean glass instead of the fog of denial. That night, Corey came home late again. Her makeup was fresher than it should have been for someone who worked late. and her smile dropped the moment she saw me sitting on the couch. I wasn't watching TV. I wasn't scrolling my phone. I was just sitting there waiting. "We need to talk," I said, calm and flat. She froze, standing by the hallway like she was already planning an escape route. I pointed to the folder on the table. "I know about Owen. I know about the hotel. I know everything." For the first time, she looked afraid. Not sad, not sorry. Afraid. "What are you going to do?" she asked. And I just looked at her. This woman I used to believe would grow old with me, and said the one thing I never thought I'd be able to say. "Nothing right now, because I want you to sit in this house, sleep in that bed, and eat those eggs knowing that I'm already gone. Not physically, not yet, but I've left you emotionally, completely, and soon, legally." She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. And for the first time in this entire nightmare, I felt something close to peace, because the truth wasn't just out. It was mine now. I didn't leave the house right away. That would have been too easy for her. She would have spun it like I stormed off, abandoned the marriage, cracked under pressure. But I knew better now. This wasn't about escape. This was about control. Not controlling her, but finally reclaiming myself, my time, my dignity. So I stayed. I ate in silence, slept in silence, moved through the days like a ghost with a pulse. And Corey, she didn't know how to deal with it. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't asking questions. I wasn't playing the part of the wounded husband who begs for closure. That's what she expected. Instead, I was calculating. Not with rage, but with patience. I started clearing my space slowly, in ways she couldn't track all at once. Not packing, not yet. Just removing. Every drawer, every shelf, every closet I touched was left lighter. I scanned old documents, backed up photos onto encrypted drives, moved passwords to a separate account. I started logging out of things, cutting emotional and digital cords one at a time. I even moved my clothes out piece by piece. A few shirts at a time went into my gym bag, which I forgot in the trunk. Then my favorite pair of boots disappeared from the closet and found a new home under my desk at the office. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and was too afraid to ask. One morning, while she was in the shower, I pulled down the wedding album from the top of the shelf. Not because I missed it, but because I wanted to feel nothing. I flipped through the pages like a stranger. That picture of her at the altar. I used to think it was the most beautiful moment of my life. Now, I just saw someone smiling while holding a promise she had no intention of keeping. A week after the confrontation, I scheduled one final call with Vernon. We agreed to serve the divorce papers on a Thursday morning, strategically chosen because it was Corey's wellness day, and I knew she'd be home alone. I didn't want an audience. I didn't want drama. I just wanted her to open the door and find what she never expected. The ending. But before that day came, something else happened. Something I wasn't ready for. Our daughter came home. Jenna. She's 20, in college 3 states over, studying interior design. She hadn't been back in months. She texted me the day before. "Surprise visit. Just for the weekend. Don't tell Mom." Smiley face. My stomach dropped. I didn't want her to walk in on this mess. She still thought of us as a cute older couple. Still bragged to friends about how her parents stayed married when everyone else divorced. She didn't know the cracks had become chasms. When she arrived, Corey acted like everything was perfect. She hugged her, made lasagna, even pulled out the dusty board games from the hall closet. And Jenna, she was glowing, laughing, telling us stories about dorm life, professors, some guy named Travis she wasn't ready to call her boyfriend yet. And I sat there nodding, smiling, playing along like I wasn't about to tear the foundation of her childhood apart in less than 48 hours. That night, Jenna asked if she could sleep in her old room. I helped her unpack a small overnight bag, listened to her playlist of acoustic covers and bad TikTok songs, and told her good night. As I closed the door behind me, I just stood in the hallway for a while, staring at the picture frames that lined the walls. Family vacations, snow days, birthday cakes. A life built on memories that didn't match the present anymore. Corey walked out of our bedroom wearing her robe. She whispered, "You're not really doing this, are you?" Not with Jenna here. I looked at her like I'd never seen her before. I didn't choose the timing. You chose everything else. She bit her lip, probably hoping to cry, maybe even hoping I'd bend. But I didn't, because you don't get to cheat, lie, and then ask for a postponement because the optics aren't ideal. I turned away and walked down the stairs, leaving her standing there in silence. That was the night I made my final plan. Because I wouldn't just hand her a folder anymore. I was going to hand her the future, the one she created without me. And then I'd finally walk away from the woman who forgot I existed, even while standing right in front of her. The morning I handed her the envelope, the sky was gray. Not dramatic gray, like in movies. Just that heavy, overcast quiet that settles over a neighborhood before rain. I remember standing in the kitchen, holding the same coffee mug I'd held 1,000 times before. The chipped one from that road trip to Oregon we took back when things still felt simple. It suddenly felt like I was holding an artifact from a dead civilization. Corey walked in wearing jeans and a tank top, her hair still wet from a shower. Jenna was upstairs getting ready to meet an old high school friend for brunch, blissfully unaware of the war about to break open just a few feet beneath her. I didn't say a word. I just placed the envelope on the counter between us. She stared at it. Her fingers hovered over the seal like it might burn her. "What is this?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. "You know what it is," I said. She didn't open it right away. She just looked at me, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something raw in her eyes. Not guilt, not shame, fear. But not the kind that comes from loss. It was the fear of being seen without her mask. "Don't do this," she said quietly. "Not while Jenna is here. I didn't plan for her to visit. But I'm not waiting another day to pretend we're something we're not." She finally tore open the envelope, her hands shaking just enough for me to notice. As she skimmed the pages, the official filing, the date stamp, the outline of terms I'd worked on with Vernon. Her mouth slowly opened, but no words came out. Then she asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Are you really going through with this?" I just nodded. "It's already filed. You'll get a separate notice from your attorney." She set the envelope down and crossed her arms. "So what? You get to play the victim now. After everything I gave up for this family." I stared at her. "You didn't give up anything, Corey. You traded me in silently. You just didn't expect the return policy to work both ways." She blinked. That one landed. "I gave you stability," she said, her voice rising. "Support. Do you think Owen was around for Jenna's visit last year? Or when your uncle died? Do you think he would have helped you hold things together when the company laid you off?" I felt heat in my chest. Not anger, but something like heartbreak with teeth. "And yet," I said slowly, "you were texting him in our house. You were laughing at my expense. You brought me to the party so he could watch you parade around like I didn't exist." She didn't deny it, just looked away. And then, from upstairs, Jenna called out, "Hey, you guys okay down there?" We both froze. Corey's eyes darted toward the staircase, panic crawling across her face. I saw her next move before she even said it. "You tell her, and I swear I'll never forgive you." That was her play. Not an apology, not remorse, just a warning to keep her image intact, even if it meant silencing the truth again. "I'm not going to destroy her view of you," I said. "Not today. But someday she's going to ask what happened. And when she does, I'll tell her the truth. All of it." Corey swallowed hard. "She'll hate me. Then you'll know how it feels." That was the last thing I said before stepping away from the counter. I went upstairs, knocked on Jenna's door, and told her I'd be heading out for the afternoon to get some air. She smiled, completely unaware. She gave me a hug and told me to bring back cookies from the farmer's market if I passed by it. That hug stayed with me all day, like a reminder of the version of life I was walking away from. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Vernon. "Looks like she read the terms," he said flatly. "Her lawyer's already reaching out." "Good," I said. "I want it clean. No kids involved. She doesn't get the house. You keep your retirement accounts. This won't be a war unless she makes it one." "She won't," I said. She only fights when she thinks she can still win. There was a pause. Then Vernon said something I didn't expect. You handled this better than most men I've seen in your situation. I didn't know how to respond. I wasn't proud. I wasn't relieved. I was just tired. Thanks, I said. I'm not sure it feels like handling it, but I'm still standing. And that somehow was enough, because I hadn't just served her papers. I'd handed her the moment she never believed would come. The moment I finally stopped standing in the background of her life, and the moment she realized that the man she thought would never leave already had. 3 months later, the house was mine. Officially and entirely. Not just legally. I mean that in a deeper way. The silence that once felt suffocating had become calm. The kitchen, which once echoed with half-hearted conversations and veiled resentment, was now a space for music and coffee and breathing freely. The bedroom, once a museum of broken intimacy, had been repainted, refurnished, and reclaimed. Corey moved out 2 weeks after the papers were finalized. There were no tears, no screaming. She packed quickly and precisely, like a woman leaving a hotel room she'd overstayed in. She didn't hug me goodbye. She didn't ask if I was okay. But as she closed the front door for the last time, I heard her pause on the porch. She didn't say anything, just lingered. And then she was gone. Jenna came home again a few weekends after that. I was nervous, unsure of how to frame everything, unsure how much she already suspected. But to my surprise, she didn't seem shocked. She sat across from me with a mug of tea in her hands and said, "You don't have to explain, Dad. I saw it coming a long time ago. I just didn't want it to be true." I nodded. I didn't want it to be true either. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you." That sentence, so simple, so unprompted, shattered something in me in the best way possible. Not because I needed validation, but because for the first time in years, I felt like I had shown up for myself. And someone saw it. Not long after that, I started hiking again. I met a group that does early morning trail runs every Saturday just outside Dalton Springs. I go for the air, the quiet. The people don't ask many questions, and I don't offer much. But being out there, sweating beneath the pine trees, miles from anything that used to define me, it's become my ritual, my release. There's a woman in the group named Elise. She's not flashy, not overly chatty, but she has this way of listening. Really listening. When you talk, she smiles with her eyes. She doesn't ask about my past, and I don't ask about hers. Not yet. And that's okay. We've had coffee twice. No pressure, no labels. Just two people relearning the sound of laughter without weight attached to it. Some nights I sit on the porch with a book and a blanket, and I look up at the stars. I used to do that with Corey back in the early years. We'd make wishes, dreams, promises. Now I just sit, breathe, and give thanks that I had the courage to walk away from a love that no longer loved me back. And the beautiful, unspoken truth? I didn't fall apart. I found myself one quiet, painful, liberating step at a time. So, if you're reading this and sitting in a marriage that feels more like a performance than a partnership, I won't tell you what to do. But I will say this, you don't have to stay invisible just because someone got used to not looking at you. You're allowed to matter, even if it starts with something as simple as saying nothing and finally walking away.